There had been some debate over who can really take the credit for the phenomenal rise of the business process outsourcing industry in the Philippines. While no single person birthed it, Karen Batungbacal de Venecia's pioneering role is indisputable, and she's often called the mother of the BPO industry. In 2000, she became CEO of C-Cubed, one of the first Philippine-owned and established BPO companies. And in 2004, she co-founded the industry association IBPAP, which serves as the channel between the government, local industry, and foreign BPOs. Today, she runs the Philippine offices of QBE Group Shared Services Center, continuing to grow the company and advocating for the entire industry, which employs more than 1 million Filipinos in their own country. Karen Batungbacal, welcome to Leading Women.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Angel.
It's lovely to meet the mother of the BPO industry in the Philippines.
No, well, thank you for that. You know, it was in an article. I do need to share the credit. There's a few of us who were very involved in the BPO industry. But yes, I was one of the pioneers. Let's not say how many years ago that was.
Let's talk about you being a mother first. To 4 beautiful children.
Yes.
Tell us about how it was when you were working and you became a mom, or did you become a mom first before you started working?
No, I was always working, Angel. So I guess my whole life I've been working straight from college. And when I came home to the Philippines for what I thought was a short-term assignment, it was only supposed to be a 2-year assignment, I met and married someone very quickly because I was supposed to go back to the US and had my children. As a matter of fact, my first 2 are just 12 months apart. And I remember driving myself to work and I felt something happening in my body and I said, well, maybe I better turn around and go to the hospital. And that's how I gave birth to my second. I guess I've always been taught to be independent and to be self-reliant, even if I was married or had a great family. That value was instilled in me very young.
Who instilled the value of being independent? Was it your mom or your dad?
Both of them, but particularly my mother. She wanted to ensure that each of us would learn, have a career. It didn't matter what that career was, and not be dependent on anyone. Particularly, she meant, somebody that we marry, because you never know what life will throw at you. The second thing too is, she wanted to make sure that we maximized our God-given talent. So both my parents were very smart people. My father was self-made man and was, I would say, a role model for me, worked very hard to achieve all he did. So it was also an expectation in the household that we would need to work for our place in life.
Being the middle child, you had the bunso and you had the panganay.
Yes.
Did you feel pressure to maybe live up to what your elder sister was doing, or to try to match what your younger sister was doing?
I'm the quintessential middle child with the middle child syndrome. But I didn't think of it that way, but there was always this competition. Something innate in me just felt I needed to do something different, to get out of the shadow of the eldest and also the cute youngest sister.
Did that motivate you? Did that drive you to choose chemical engineering in college?
No, not at all. My dream was to be a lawyer, but my mother said she felt at that time that there were too many lawyers and that it would be difficult for me to stand out. And she said, "You're very good in maths and science." And she enrolled me in chemical engineering in LaSalle. And of course, when I entered LaSalle, and there are very few women, and you're surrounded by all the boys, I said, "Ooh, there's some advantages to being in engineering." So it was fun to be now surrounded by a lot of the opposite sex who are very eager to help me, whether it was engineering drawings or help me get up to speed in physics or math. I enjoyed the academics, the math. It was, well, I always enjoyed it, so I just slid into it.
So your mom was right all along.
She was right all along. I do have to thank her for that. Even if I never worked a day in chemical engineering, never worked a day in my life except in graduate school, what chemical engineering taught me was the discipline of thinking, of logical processing, of taking a problem and stepping through that. So that process orientation and dissecting problems was really critical, because you use it either in your personal life, you can use it in, obviously, in work. That's very important.
In college, Karen harbored dreams of working for NASA. So she finished her degree in the US and landed a scholarship at Princeton University for doctoral studies in chemical engineering. It was while working in the laboratories, however, that she realized the solitary life of a scientific researcher was not for her.
Halfway through my doctoral studies, and your doctorate takes about 3-4 years. After the first year, when I was in my little laboratory taking lots of data points, I realized, because that's very solitary work, you're in your little lab 10 to 14 hours a day and just working on your experiment and your thesis. And after a year, I thought I would go crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, people person. I realized I really am a people person.
The thoughts of being working for NASA just flew
I
out
know,
into
so
space.
exactly. It flew out, that's a good thing. Yeah, so the lawyer, where I thought I would be this wonderful champion, yeah, that went out the door. And then also NASA, I did have to kiss that dream goodbye and decided that I wanted to work in general industry. And unfortunately, when I interviewed with companies that are like the Coca-Colas, the Procter & Gambles, they wanted to put me back into research. And I said, "Well, hold on. Can you put me in some other part of the company?" And they couldn't understand that I was willing to take a huge cut in pay, but I didn't want to be in research. I said, "Well, that's why I'm leaving my school." So after that, a mentor at the time said, "Well, why don't you just look for a management training program? Because companies that have these expect you to come with zero knowledge." And that's how I landed at this shipping company called American President Lines, APL, where I knew nothing.
What exactly
Absolutely.
were you doing?
Well-
and how did you feel getting into this company with zero knowledge, as you just mentioned?
With shipping, when I interviewed with them, that's a funny story, because the offices of this company was in Wall Street. So I said, "Wow, fancy office in New York." And when I did all the interviews, I thought, okay, great, this is where I'm going to work. And it's a management training program over 6 to 8 months all across the US and a little bit in Asia. Little did I know that the time that I would spend in that wonderful office in Wall Street would be so minimal, that I would be thrown into the rail yards, into the ports, into, getting on board those huge container vessels. But I guess the boyish in me and the engineer,
Yes.
I said, "Well, I can do this." And funny stories, like I remember when I was, took a promotion in the Philippines. Now I was working in the Philippines, and I was in logistics, and I entered a big meeting of all these shipping companies. The question they asked me was, "Iha, whose secretary are you? And I said, not the secretary, I'm the logistics head for APL. And I think collectively, silence in the room and their jaws dropped because they said, really? It usually is somebody that's a captain or somebody with their chops who've been in the maritime industry a long time. And here was a 20-something-year-old.
Nice.
But it was, again, used to being around a lot of men. So that was not a challenge. I enjoyed the shock and consternation.
At that point, Karen was married with children, and so she chose to stay in the Philippines. From shipping, she was quickly headhunted into banking, another industry she knew nothing about, but decided to take head on. Within 2 years, however, she would get a phone call that would lead her to the most significant career shift yet.
How did you feel about the transition?
Luckily enough, I did get a phone call, and that phone call was from the Lopez Group of Companies, and they said, we're going to be starting a new telco. I said, really? And they said, yes, the country deregulated telecoms, and we're going to start a new telco to compete against PLDT. Would you like to join? And I said, well, I don't know anything about telecoms. And they said, that's fine. Just come on board. And I joined a company that now became Buy and Tel. But at that time when I joined, there was no name, but we just knew that we were starting a telco.
From being a chemical engineer, you went to the shipping line, and then you went to a bank, and then the telco. You mentioned that, all of these things, okay, I don't know anything about it, but I'm there, I'm going to do my best. How do you feel about that?
I think what was really good about all of those different career shifts is the person I was going to work for in those companies believed that I had the capability. So that helped me make the career choice with moving from shipping to banking, and also from banking to telecoms. Because they said, no, Karen, you can do this. And it was funny, they said, you're going to be in charge of anything that touches the customer. So I said, is that, you mean call centers? And they said, yes.
Help us understand what exactly is the BPO industry and your role as the mother of the BPO industry in the country.
So what BPO means, it stands for Business Process Offshoring. So that's where work, any kind of work, whether it's call center work, whether it's financial work, companies have work that they do, and they usually do it in their home countries. But the cost in the first world, be it New York, London, Hong Kong, etc., the cost there starts to become very prohibitive. So do you really need, in the age of the internet, the web, and telecommunications, does everything need to be done onshore? Of course not. Work can easily be done offshore in countries like the Philippines. And this is where I truly believe this is our niche now as a country, because we're so naturally customer service oriented, right? The Filipinos so warm. The US primarily saw the magic that we could produce here in the Philippines.
BPOs go beyond the stereotype of the caffeinated call center agent. Filipinos in skilled professions like architects, engineers, and lawyers, and particularly those with foreign language knowledge, can be lured back from abroad to work in the Philippines for equally competitive salaries.
So nice that you're able to tap into all these Filipinos who are doing well abroad, and their talents, their skills can be utilized in the country.
Because we want to reach out to everyone, because the kind of jobs that are coming here now, a lot of times we have to look for people in other countries. Well, I'd rather we target Filipinos with the same skill set, who can do the more complex work that's coming to our country, like in analytics and in data modeling and the high sciences, because that's the work now that's in demand in the country. So we need to find the talent, and we need to work together with government in finding and having a more systematic approach of attracting people to come back here.
And that's what the country needs. That's what each and every Filipino needs, employment.
It's employment, and that's why every government, ever since we started from 2000 onwards, has fully supported our industry. While it doesn't bring hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, it brings employment. The research companies tell us for every direct job in the BPO industry, there's a multiplier effect of 2 to 3 other jobs. Those 2 to 3 other jobs could be because we're constructing all these buildings to house all the BPO and all the companies that are coming here. It could be in the 24-hour fast food centers, it's in transportation. So for the million employees we have directly working for our industry now, we're actually employing close to 3 million.
How competitive are the Filipinos? I know the Filipinos are very, very hardworking. You say 12 to 14 hours, they'll extend to 20 hours.
Yes.
But how competitive are they in this kind of an industry?
So generally speaking, I think that, of course I'm biased, but I think we're better than most. I think we're the tops because we don't just come with the intellect. The Filipino comes as well with the heart. And that's why a lot of companies like to do business here because we're not really individualistic as a nation. That isn't as common in other countries. Other countries that individualistic, I just want my career to do well, regardless of everyone. That's not the Filipino. But that's wonderful because our business is all about teams. I think that's what holds us separate from other countries that are trying to compete in this space because we have the heart and the loyalty and the value system. So it's exciting.
Karen had always thought that when she retired, she'd end up working for the government. But ever since she found herself in the BPO arena, she realized she's already doing just that, helping the government bring jobs here. Being a woman and a mother has made the objective of keeping families together especially meaningful.
The world is looking at the Philippines, as you've mentioned, and now a new government is coming in, and all eyes are on us.
Yes.
In terms of the industry that you're in, how do you feel about this?
I have, I think, the best job in the world because I love what I'm doing. I also love what it's doing for the country. It's a wonderful marriage.
So being a woman leader in an industry that, would you say is dominated by men?
Still, it's
Males
still dominated by a lot of men. I think what helps us, those like secret weapons it's our empathy, right? Our caring. It's also, women are much more collaborative in nature. You know, we talk to each other.
Yes.
And I think the third one that's very important is our intuition. I'm not saying that men don't have it, of course they do, but that's why they say the female sense of intuition. Our intuitive nature, which sometimes our educational system beats out of us because we become more logical. That's something that we should nurture because a lot of times that intuition is spot on. It's correct. And that helps us in a business situation, in making decisions, because a lot of decisions you make, you're not going to have all the data. You just have to make it from your gut feel. And I think that's also what's advantageous for women. Listen to that inner being, because a lot of times, if you were to think back, that inner being was right. We just didn't listen to it, or we talked ourselves out of it, right?
So that's the logical thinking.
Yes, that's the logical thinking that we're taught in schools.
On that note, Karen, you've said it beautifully, to listen to our gut. Logical thinking, maybe we can put
Yes.
it aside, but I'd like to thank you for your time here on Leading Women. Your story has enlightened all of us and has inspired all of us to become better individuals, become better Filipinos, and to love the country, and to know that there is work in the country for them. So maraming salamat.
No, thank you very much. Maraming salamat, Angel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Business process outsourcing pioneer Karen Batungbacal de Venecia found her life's work through being open-minded and hardworking, trusting in herself and her mentors to hone the talents needed for the next big career shift. The BPO industry continues to be a transformative force in the professional landscape of the Philippines. And for Karen, it's a very exciting field to be in right now. In so many years, we'll be able to see the wide-reaching result, not only on the economy, but in the social fabric of people's lives. As more and more workers, both technically skilled and creative, will have the choice to stay in the country and be with their families. Because for many Filipinos, isn't family the most important thing?